had a thought upon her heart. I started studying one thing and thought I'd read a reading lesson for one reason, but the Lord gave me a different reason to read it. And we're going to look in the book of Luke in the 5th chapter, starting at verse 1 for a reading lesson. Luke 5 and 1. It says, "And it came to pass that as the people pressed upon him to hear the word of God, he stood by the lake of Gennesaret, and saw two ships standing by the lake, but the fishermen were gone out of them, and were washing their nets. And he entered in one of the ships, which was Simon's, and prayed him that he would thrust out a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the people out of the ship. And when he had left the speaking, he said unto Simon, Launch out into the deep, and let down your nets for a draught. And Simon answered and said unto him, Master, we have toiled all the night, and we have taken nothing. Nevertheless, at thy word, I will let down the net. And when they had done, they enclosed a great multitude of fishes, and their net brake. And they beckoned unto their partners, which were in the other ship, that they should come and help them. And they came and filled both ships, so that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. For he was astonished, and all that were with him, at the draw of fishes which they had taken. And so also was James and John and the sons of Zebedee, which were partners unto Simon. And Jesus said unto Simon, Fear not, from henceforth thou shalt catch men. And when they heard they had brought their ships to land, they forsook all and followed him. Now, with my mistakes in reading, that's the first 11 verses of Luke, the 5th chapter, for a reading lesson. And we find here, and there's different thoughts that I've gotten out of it reading at this time that I've never got before, that here as they were pressing on the Lord, I believe there was a lot of sincerity among many to truly learn of the way of the Lord. I believe that there were many pressing upon him just to see what he was going to say or do next. Not by faith, but just by doing so. And here, all this pressing upon him, and not that it bothered him, not that it was worrisome to him, but I believe he went on to this ship, that one of these ships that had come into port there, that he asked, went on to Simon's ship there, and he said, Thrust out a little, not far, just a little, give him a little space, so that they'd settle down just a little, listening to him. I wish the world would settle down just a little bit and listen to the Lord. If we would just settle down a little bit, calm down just a little, and listen to the Lord, it'd do us all a lot of good. If we all in a work and we got our mind made up, that's a lot of the world's problem. That's a lot of Baptist problem. That's a lot of lost sinners' problem. They got their mind made up before they hear anything from the Lord. But if you'll have an open mind and you'll settle down a little bit and calm down and let your mind listen and let that get down into that heart, I'm going to tell you what, it can do you some good. And we look here in something that never had stood out to me before, but stood out to me this time, is they had been out at night. They had been fishing, and they went a lot at night to fish. These two ships were in there, and it says the fishermen were gone out, and they were washing their nets. I wrote a long time ago that they were done trying. At that point in time, they'd put it all up. They was putting things up. But this time I got to looking and thinking about this washing their nets. It just stuck out to me different. Why were they washing their nets? So I started trying to research it a little bit, because I don't know nothing about fishing with a net. I don't know anything about it. Never done it. Seen some short stories on it, some shows on it. But they would get these nets and they would drag them to the bottom. They'd have floats on them at the top, and they'd have weights on them at the bottom, so that they would drag the bottom. And sometimes it'd be one ship that would go, but a lot of times they'd throw it between one ship to another. They'd both be sailing in the same direction, dragging as they go, working in tandem and together. I can tell you what, we need to be dragging together. We need to be working in tandem in this work. And we look here and we find that when they would go through this, they didn't just get fish tangled up in that. They'd get all kinds of things off of that ocean bottom, that sea bottom, caught up in that net. Now these nets then probably weren't maybe as strong as what man can manufacture today. So they'd pick them up, and you can find another place in the scriptures that says they were mending their nets. Their net might be torn, have holes in it. They'd have to find those, and they'd have to mend them. They'd have to get all the algae off and truly wash them. Anything that got attached to them, rocks, shells, twigs, whatever it might be, that would cause them not to be able to do their job right. As I read it, when they're clean and they go in, they'll go in and they won't disturb the water as much if there ain't a lot of other things there to cause a ruckus. They'll just kind of go in smooth into the water. I'm going to tell you what, we need to pray that the gospel net goes in there and there's nothing to disturb it when it goes in. We need to pray that it goes in smooth. And the church, that is the church's role in praying for that word when it's being preached, is that it would go forth, and it would go forth just like it needs to, with nothing hindering it, nothing getting a hold of it and casting it off aside, and that it's mended upright so that nothing, if the whole goal of a fishing net is to catch fish, you don't want a hole in it. You don't want gaps in it. You want it to be able to do its job. And I'm going to tell you what, we need to pray for every preacher everywhere that when that gospel's preached, there ain't no holes left. Right. There ain't no holes left. There ain't no gaps left, so that everybody that hears that gospel can get caught up in it. And we look and we find that this, and just in reading and studying and meditating about it, they done worked all night. Y'all done work today. We're a little more tired. A little more tired than we'd be on a Sunday morning. They were tired, they was wore out, and this was tedious work. It didn't get done in about 5-10 minutes. They didn't have no pressure washer. They had to go through, and they had to take their time after they was tired, probably wanted to go home and rest. They had to take the time to do that so it was ready the next time it needed to be cast out. I'm going to tell you what, we need to make sure that our nets personally are in the right shape. That the church is in the right shape each and every time that we go together. It doesn't matter how tired we get, we'll rest when the Lord calls us home. We need to ask for a little more strength. We need to dig a little deeper within ourselves for the fortitude to keep going forward and doing the little tedious things that need to be done so that the gospel goes forward. It might be things that we might think that nobody else notices, and nobody else notice them, but the Lord's watching. He will see every little bit of effort that is made on your behalf so that it is in the shape that it needs to be in at Friendship Church or any church, that when the gospel is preached, that it goes forth and it brings forth the drop. Now that's going to take a little work on our part. Means that they didn't just go over, and they trusted one another to do their part. The Lord just now bringing some of this to me now. They had to trust one another. They had to trust that man next to them that he was doing that job as good as what they had done. That he had taken the time and care to clean and mend their area of that net just like they would. There had to be a faith in one another, a trust that we're all working and laboring for the same goal, which is to get it in the shape so that when we go out, that it's ready to catch fish. My brothers and sisters, we need to be in that shape. We need to be in the shape that when we come together, that I know you've got your shape right where you need to be. That your area, what God expects out of you, that you're in the shape, that I ain't got to worry. Are they going to hold up there even? You're already there. And y'all ought to expect the same thing out of me or anybody else beside of you. We are in this together. You think the preacher's going to pack it all? Y'all are sorely mistaken. This is a work of the church of the true and living God. And my brothers and sisters, we need to work together. We need to trust one another. And I'm going to tell you what, I'm sure there's times and they is working together. I can only imagine you put anybody working together for very long, there's going to be times they might got a little frustrated with one another. But they love one another. Probably carried on one another. Aggravated one another. Seen one of them seem not to be in the shape that they're normally in. Are you all right? I'm going to tell you what, you put in some time and efforts with somebody, you put in some work and sweat with somebody, you get to caring about those individuals. I'm going to tell you what, that's the way it ought to be with the Lord's church everywhere we go. That we're all working and laboring together, and everywhere we go, that we're working and laboring, and we'll begin to care one for another. I believe that's the reason we need to visit around other churches. We need to visit around and work and labor for them just like we want them to work and labor for us. We'll work and labor together one for another. I'm going to tell you what, we'll build up more love. We'll build up more love and equity with God. Because I believe we all cast in the same net. I believe we are, don't y'all? See, here we thought about that, and I mean, it just got on me. We got to get ourselves in a shape now. I got to get myself in a shape. And am I doing enough that y'all can trust me that I'm doing my job? You call some other preachers to help in the meeting. Guess what? You're saying, we can trust them. Well, I'm going to tell you what, when you're standing here, we're putting faith in you. Putting faith in you that you're lifting us up in prayer. I'm going to tell you what, it takes faith. Not just in our God, but we need to have faith and trust and love in one another. Here we find that they had done all this. He was out there teaching for them, and they was just a little way from land. I don't know how far they were. And he said, now launch out into the deep. Launch out into the deep. You're going to go get some fish. You better go where they at. We better go to where the fish are at. I'm going to tell you what, it's the work of this church and every church just like her to go to where the fish are at. We can say, well, they know we're here. Well, I'm going to tell you what, we know where they are. They're all around. There are fish all around. There are lost souls all around us, and we need to work and labor to get them in. We do. Now, if you think that's only the preacher's responsibility, you're wrong. It's the Lord's church's responsibility. Now, this gets out of a comfort zone for us a little bit. We got to get a little further from shore. Y'all don't know me. I ain't going. If you hear I've went on a cruise or a ship somewhere, I don't plan on coming back. I'm trying to run from somebody, and I ain't coming back because I don't like water at all. But I can tell you what. If we're going to do some things and we're going to go get things done, we're going to have to get further out there. This gospel's got to get further and further out there. We can't restrain this gospel. We can't hold this gospel back. We've got to spread this net as wide and go as far as we need to with it to get that gospel out to a lost and dying world. He said, go out there, launch out into the deep. Get on out there. He said, and let down your nets for a draw. Let down your nets. Now, he said nets. Y'all keep that in mind. They said, Master, we've toiled all night. We're give out. We're wore out. We're tired. I understand that. Now, the Lord's whooped me a few times in life. Well, a lot of times, to be honest. And we don't need to wear ourselves out so hard working in this world that we're so wore out we think we can't do a little for the Lord. Now, I've been guilty of it. I ain't got no lie to tell y'all. Worked myself to death on Saturday, or it might not be to death for you, but is for me. Worked so hard and tired, wear this old body out, and when this body is wore out, that mind don't work as good. Don't work as good. That soul and that spirit ain't where it needs to be. And I know that we need to work and labor from Monday through Saturday so we can have Sunday for the Lord. I believe that as sure as I'm standing here. But we don't need to get ourselves so give out that we ain't got nothing else to give the Lord. We need to maybe hold back just a little bit. Reserve a little bit of that physical energy so we've got that to give to the Lord. Because we're going to need it. We're going to be sustained. If this way's going to go on, He's going to need. We don't need just spiritual. We need spiritual. We need physical energy to serve God. He's whooped me hard over that. Come in here last Sunday, wore out. That's my own fault. Wasn't the Lord's. Said here, Master, we toiled all night, we taken in nothing. Not only are we wore out, it didn't do a bit of good. If I had stopped, if the preachers before me had stopped, if the brothers and sisters before you had stopped, when nothing happened, where would the church be today? What good is it doing? We're doing and we're doing and we're seeing no results. You just keep on plugging. You keep getting that net ready. You keep washing it off. You keep mending it. You keep making sure it's in the right condition. And you keep casting it. I don't care if you don't get but a little bitty goldfish. You get everything you can get that the Lord will give. It don't matter if you go years and years and years without seeing a lost sinner saved. You keep casting that net. Because you keep casting it long enough, that gospel net's going to catch somebody. It's going to get a hold of somebody. I'm thankful today that our brothers and sisters before us, that when the times was tough, we like to look back and hear about the time that they had 15 and 20 saved in a meeting. We don't hear a whole lot about the meetings where there was nobody saved. We don't hear nothing about the meetings where it was cold and froze open. But they had those too. But they kept on going, and they kept on meeting, and they kept on trusting, and knowing if they kept on, that God would come through. The church got into shape. You know, I believe the church used to meet one Sunday a month. And it used to come together, and when they'd come together, they didn't have time to dilly and dally around. They didn't have time to hope that maybe next Sunday we'll be in the shape. They's going to have to go a while for that preacher to be back through again. And what they did when they come together on that one Sunday a month, they come to have meeting. And they went up to 2. They were still hungry. And I believe meeting every Sunday. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe we need to track backwards. I believe the church needs to meet every Sunday. Back then, and many years ago, what is many preachers? What is many pastors around? It's what there is now, but you know what? That's going in the other direction too. But I want you to know we need to come in hungry every Sunday. Come in starved to death, ready to serve God, ready to see Him do some marvelous work. Sit down and ready to learn and hear His word preached. They didn't take off. You don't see where when He thrust out a little from the land that they said, well, I don't want to be here now. They sit and they listen. I'm going to tell you what, sometimes we need to sit and listen to the Word of God, and then we need to move when God tells us to move. It says here, nevertheless, at thy word, I will let down the net. Now the Lord said, let down your nets. And He said, I'll let down the net. Now, He was going to almost do everything the Lord wanted Him to do. He was going to do a little, but He didn't do both. I don't know how many nets they had, but they had more than one, and He wanted them to let both of them, or 2 of them, or 3 of them, whatever it was, down. I can tell you what, I wish we'd all do what the Lord wants us to do just one time in the service. I hope I could live to see that. Had a good service a few weeks ago, and had somebody tell me, says, well, so-and-so told me they were supposed to testify, but they didn't. So-and-so said they were supposed to have done this, but they didn't. I'm going to tell you what, when the Lord tells us to cast our nets, put our trust in Him to do our little part in what He wants us to do, let's just do that. Just a little thing on our part. So here, but you know what, when they cast it, it wasn't just one person throwing it out there. It took them all. They all worked to get that out there. I'm going to tell you what, you might say, well, that's the preacher's job. Well, I'm going to tell you what that I have and these other preachers have, and I've seen other preachers, all of them way better than I am at trying to deliver the gospel. And you could tell that the Lord was with them. and it dove off right there. Seemed like it had good liberty. You could tell the Lord was with them, but it wasn't going nowhere. Why? The church wasn't in the shape that it needed to be in, that it'd go forth, and it would just spread over the church. I'm going to tell you what, we need your help to spread this gospel, so that when it's cast out, that it don't stop right here, that it strikes out from one end to the other. It says, when they had done this, they enclosed a great multitude of fishes, and their net brake. I believe their net broke in this instance because they didn't do exactly what the Lord told them to do, which is to tell out to more than one net. They asked the other partners to come here to the Lord, or to them to help, and there's so many fish that they both began to sink. Now these wasn't big old traveling ships. These was fishing boats. These wasn't big things like what we might think of, but they were just smaller boats. And the weight began to bring them down. Here it says that Simon, he threw himself down at the Lord's knees and told him, he said, I believe it says here, depart from me, oh, I'm a sinful man, oh Lord. He thought, now we're going to die, and it's because of me. Lord, he wasn't worried about that. They got over there to the shore. He said, fear not. Well, they hadn't got shore yet. Fear not, from thence thou shalt catch men. They got there to the shore. What an experience they had had there with the Lord. They got all them fishes. And their job, they just tried and caught nothing. The Lord was with them, and they had so many they couldn't drag them in by themselves. They needed help. This was how they made a living. They thought so little of that living, they left it. They didn't clean them. They didn't do nothing with them. And they got there, they forsook it all and followed the Lord. I'm going to tell you what, you saying, well, the Lord wants us to quit our jobs? No, why the Lord wants us to work. But I can tell you what He wants us to do. He don't want us holding on to all that and trying to follow Him. He wants us to let go of all that and our trust in that and what that can do for us and put our trust in Him. And here we want you to understand today that I don't believe that it's any different in this day and time. The Lord has still made the church of the true and living God fishers of men. Believe we are. I believe the goal, the first and foremost thing is to get that gospel out to a lost and a dying world so that they can hear the truth, seek God, and be saved. And if they get caught up in that net just right, they won't wiggle loose from it. Now, I've seen just a little bit of it. Some of them will wiggle loose. They'll get out somehow. There will be many that will hear, and they'll wiggle out to their own peril. But all those that are brought, I'm going to tell you what, it'll make a difference in their life. I'm thankful that net was cinched around me so tight that I couldn't wiggle out, ain't you? I didn't go to church to be caught, but it caught me. You know, some here, by their testimony and the life I know of them, and not any of us had a bad life and living rough or things like that, but the gospel net taught them that if it hadn't been for just a few things of the Lord being placed in their life, they may have never been caught up in that thing. What a blessing for them. That the Lord put things in order so that they would come in contact with the gospel net. I've been rocked in it. If I hadn't got caught in it, it's because I fought every step of the way. But there's been many. And oh, how grateful they are. They probably have a greater appreciation for this than what you and I do. And I want you to understand that there's many out there that ain't been raised this way, hadn't been taught this way, and I want you to understand that they deserve to hear the gospel just as you and I. Amen. They need to hear the gospel. They need to have that gospel cast out to them so that they can get caught up in it. You say, well, it won't do no good. That's what they thought. That's what they thought. What good's this going to do? What good's it come out here on Wednesday night? What good's that it going to do? I'm going to tell you what it's going to do. It's going to give God honor and glory. Amen. We get ourselves in the shape of what God is saying in this. Why, clean your net, Cast it out. I'll take care of the rest of it. That's what he's saying. Go over here in the book of John in the 21st chapter. Peter says, I go a-fishing. I go a-fishing. Now, he didn't say the Lord sent him a-fishing, but he said, I go a-fishing. Now, I've heard it said and discussed that, well, he shouldn't have went till the Lord sent him. If I waited till I was knocked down to preach, I wouldn't preach very much. I can tell you that right now. I wished I was knocked down, hard beaten out of my chest every time I stood up. But I'm going to tell you what, there is a burning inside. There is a fire that is lit inside that I want to go. I want to go a-fishing. I want to go and spread that gospel. And I don't believe that I'm the only one in that shape. I've seen preachers much greater than I that made greater sacrifices than I've ever made for this great cause and for our Lord. And they went a-fishing. He went a-fishing and he worked all night, him and those that went with him. Didn't catch a thing. Says that in verse 3, didn't catch a thing. I've been there. Been through meetings, never seen a soul on the altar. But you keep on going fishing. Then the morning come, it says in verse 4, and now was come, and Jesus stood on the shore, and the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. Then saith Jesus unto them, Children, have ye any meat? And they answered him, No. I'm going to tell you what, if you don't have any meat to eat, you're going to get hungry after a little bit. You need some meat to eat. You need something to sustain you. You know, you'll finally, you just lose your strength. You begin to lose weight, you know, just in a natural sense, and you won't be able to work. You won't be able to labor. Well, the Lord knows that in the spiritual sense for us too. Do you have any meat? Have you eaten? You got anything to eat? No. I'm going to tell you what, the Lord wants to feed us too. He wants to feed us. He said unto them, Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find. Now, I like it when the Lord says, Kevin, tell them this. Kevin, tell them this. I don't always get that, and more times than not, I'll fight it. I'll think it ain't enough. Did it just a few Sundays ago. It ain't enough. That can't be it. Just cast your net. You'll find. I'm going to tell you what, when you might think, well, this little impression, this thing the Lord wants you to do, it ain't enough. If He tells you to cast a net somewhere, He tells you to move it somewhere, you need to do it. Because it'll be something found back. Cast your net on the right side, not left, not in the middle, on the right side. Well, they did this, and it says here, they cast therefore, and now there was they were not able to draw for the multitude of fishes. They couldn't even pull it in. Couldn't even pull it in. It was so much. I find that in the Scriptures. I believe it is in the book of Galatians. No, it's not Galatians. Got my thoughts mixed up there. It's in the book of Malachi. If I can find Malachi, I know it's in the Old Testament. Y'all bear with me here a minute. Malachi 3:10. Bring ye tithes into the storehouse, and there may be meat in thine house. Prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour out you a blessing, and there shall not be room enough to receive it. He said, if you'll bring here, he says, you bring in tithes. Well, you get to preaching on tithes and people get worried. They get to clenching that wallet thinking he's wanting our money. I'm going to tell you what, I ain't wanting your money. That's the Lord's business there. The tithes that we need to give is our time, our effort, our prayer, our dedication to the Lord. He's way more interested in that. The Lord owns cattle on 1,000 hills. He owns every nickel that's in this world. He owns it all and thinks a little of it, He's going to burn them all up. He's more worried about you and your soul and your condition and what you offer, what you bring Him, how much and how willing. The Lord loves a cheerful giver. He loves somebody to come and to do for Him because they want to. I remember preaching, starting out, I preached because I was scared not to. Scared not to. Went along that way for a long time, scared not to. Well, that's a good thing to be, is scared of the Lord. somewhere along the way, our life has got to change from scared not to Lord, I want to. We got to mature. We got to love. We got to care. Won't be able to even take it in. There's one of the disciples that says here, whom the Lord loves, told Peter, said, it is the Lord. He was off on the shore and says, wait a minute now. What's happening here? Hey, that's the Lord. Peter took off. Didn't wait on nothing. Didn't wait for him to get closer. Boom, he was gone. He was going to get to his Lord. The rest of them come, and then when they got there, they brought him some fish. He put it on. He said, bring the fish to me which you have caught. He sent them down. It says here it was 153 fishes that they had, and the net was not broken this time. He done exactly what he wanted him to do. I'm going to tell you what, this right here won't ever break. It won't ever break. It won't. You can cast it 1,000 times. Millions of times this has been cast and it still holds true. Just as strong and tight and able to catch those lost souls. Says here, coming down. They done their part. They done some work and they done some labor. He said, now I'm going to feed you. Now I'm going to feed you. After they done their part, he said, now I'm going to feed you. We like the other way around. Feed us, and then we'll go work. That ain't how it is. We got the work, and we got the labor, and then he'll feed us. Would y'all work and labor hard as you could from now through meet day and night in a revival, and not one person come on the altar, not one person seek the Lord, and just keep on working and keep on laboring without batting an eye? Not a wavering at all in your trust in the Lord? Would you keep on for a year or 2 or 3 until you seen them start getting saved? I don't believe we're going to have to, but would you? I'm going to tell you what, we better roll up our sleeves and get to work. And not lose faith. People, we measure everything, and it's easy to do. Well, they had 6 saved. They had 10 saved. They had this many baptized. Well, that's wonderful. It is. I hope there's 100. Yeah. I do. I hope the next church has a meeting and they have 3 times as many. Doesn't matter. But I'm going to tell you what, where he tests our mettle sometimes is when we've went out and we've cast our net, we didn't catch nothing, and we kept coming back. Yeah. With the same faith, that we take the same care, and we worked and we labored. Now, I've said this before, I have no natural talent working-wise. All I'm ever good at is a general hand, I guess, as far as physical labor is concerned. But it was always satisfying. When you done something, whatever it was, we used to chop wood when I was a kid, and you get it all, see it all, and you get it all done and all ripped up. There was something satisfying to know you'd put in a good day's labor. And there it was. You know, there's something to be said from when you've served the Lord to the best of your ability. You can go and lay down at night and say, Lord, I know I've done the best I can. Don't y'all feel that way? You don't have to be a preacher to feel that way, neither. Boy, to lay that head down at night, no, I've done the best I could for you today. I did the best I could in that service, Lord. I did the best in my life for you, Lord. Because that's the final lay down. It's when we get to the end and we lay her down and we can say, Lord, I've done the best that I could. I might from here on, but I hadn't from here back. There's a whole lot in the back that I wished I could fix, but I can't. All I can do is from here forward. But I believe, and I like to work with people that like to work. I like the people that like to work. At school, we train a lot of different programs, and a lot of times, and it's just how that they have to. 1 or 2 is learning something, and others are watching them so they can learn in a different way. And I always tease the ones that stand and watching. I said, you going to be a state worker? As we all say that one or two does the work, and then two or three are standing around watching. And they grinned. They said, "That's what you are." I said, "I know. I'm standing here watching." I'm going to tell you what. It's more satisfying when we're all pitched in. We get more out of it. We think more of one another. We think more of one another when a lost sinner's up here and we're all up in here working and laboring. When you're treating this person that's on the altar like they was yours, it means something. It means something. I'm going to tell you what, we need to get in that shape. It's I'm sure a lot more there that somebody else could bring out, but that's what the Lord's laid on my heart, and I hope and trust that the Lord will take it and bless it, and that we'll get in the right condition. Not just Friendship Church, but any church that's represented, that we can get in the shape we need to be in to work so that we can bring in a draw. I'd love to see a draw. I mean, an ingathering of lost souls like I hadn't never seen. I've seen some big meetings. I've been in services 5 or 6 get saved. That's big in this day and time. Now, I've seen them as a boy where they'd be popping like popcorn off that altar. He's the same God today as he was then. But those people, it was mentioned, Brother Jim mentioned at Sunday school, if you want to get something out of revival, set everything aside. Set everything aside and dedicate some time to come to the Lord's house. Turn off the TV. If you won't get aggravated, turn on the news. You've got plenty to get you aggravated. Get your mind off of it. Turn off the radio. Don't get on Facebook. Don't do any of those things. And give your heart and your mind to the Lord and just see what a better week that you have. It's a good week. I was raised that way. I ain't always done that way, but I was raised that way. And I watched them brothers and sisters. They wasn't planting during those weeks, and they wasn't reaping during those weeks. Ain't no telling how many times we dug potatoes and shelled down and silk corn the week before revival. Hot as it be, I'd say, can't we wait till a hotter day? They said, we got to get it done before meeting. Got to get it done before meeting. Laying it all aside, because we ain't going to worry about it that week. I'm going to tell you what, we need to be that way on Sunday morning. We need to be that way on Wednesday night, a prayer service or whatever might be going on, and we need to be that way for a revival meeting. And it's really an effort meeting. It's an effort. So therein lies what we've got to do. Put forth effort. And then the Lord will take care of the rest of it. This is what the Lord's laid on my heart. I appreciate you listening. I pray that God will bless it and bless you. And if there's any here that's lost, this will be a good time to come seek the Lord. Not another night, not another day. If you're going to be saved, you're going to have to make it to a time and place. I want to be saved today more than anything. And if you'll do that, put your trust in the Lord, He'll save your soul.